Let me turn my microphone on. Oh, microphone's on. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the first Facebook online course that we've been offering. Sorry. It's okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to our first online class that we've been hosting quarterly over at the library. And my law firm, I'm Brett Smith. I'm a partner with the law firm HuffSmith Law. I have Stephen Dixon Media, who's presenting the live feed tonight, and my intern Zach's here as well. What we're going to do this evening is had been presenting this course over at the library, where we'd invite people to come and we'd sit around and we'd talk about starting a new business in Alabama. And based on people's schedules and things like that, they said, "Hey, could you offer this course online?" I said, yeah, sure. So over the next hour and a half, I'm going to kind of give you a little information about me and my law firm and kind of give you some specifics on how to start a business in Alabama. Stephen, if you'll go to the next slide for me. A little bit about me. I'm a partner with the law firm HuffSmith Law. I'm a founding partner. We're located on the corner of College and Sanford in downtown Auburn. It's me and my wife as the other partner. Our focus in our law firm is to help small businesses and nonprofits. We do a little bit of real estate work as well to help them businesses get off the ground and get started. We've had the privilege and the honor of being able to help over the last 3 years about 30 to 35 new businesses get started. And the most important point on this slide is I'm the father to Dagny, our 2-year-old, as you can see there in the bottom corner. That's my pride and joy. So next slide for me, Stephen. To give you a little information, what I want to do is, I know this is kind of unusual in that we're in an online classroom setting, and because of that, I want you to know that Zach's going to be taking any questions you've got. So at any point that you have a question, feel free to ask. Feel free to, we'll stop right then and answer that question. If you want to say it at the end, that's fine too, but anything, just type it in and we'll be here to answer any questions. To give you an idea of why I wanted to do this course, when we started our law firm, I had never owned a business before. I had been an associate with other law firms, had done different type of legal work, but had never had my own business. And so when we started up the law firm, it was kind of, I had to go to different sources, different sites, different places to find all the information that I needed. And one of the main reasons I want to do that is because for me, I had fear. I had genuine fear about doing the wrong thing or not knowing the right person to talk to or not knowing the right paperwork to file. And so because of that, I wanted to create this opportunity to expose you, the audience, and the classroom to the materials that are out there, to give you that first step, mainly to build that confidence to overcome that fear. Because there's nothing more special about having your own business, starting your own way, and making your own way as a business owner. So if you go to the next slide for me. Some of the facts, there's some really neat facts to show you the impact that small businesses have. And I'll just rattle some of these off. A lot of people don't know this, but small businesses make up 98% of the employers in the state of Alabama. 98%. That's incredible. In the United States, small businesses outnumber large corporations 1,162 to 1. That is an incredible figure. Throughout the whole United States, 75% of all U.S. businesses are non-employer. Last year, total revenues from non-employer businesses hit near $1 trillion. And in the United States, 543,000 new businesses get started each month. And a lot of times people think new business, especially with new online businesses, they think, well, I've got to be a part of a franchise to start up a business. And that's really only accounts for 2% of all small businesses. 60% of all new jobs. So not only for me as a business owner to have a job, but for people in our community. It's a huge uplift for our community. 60% of people that are employed through small businesses. 52% of small businesses are home-based, meaning that they don't have a brick-and-mortar office, they don't have a location, they operate out of their home. And some of the biggest figures, and I know that a lot of friends that I have, a lot of people I know, have started online businesses. And you can look at the figures on the slide of the impact that Facebook and eBay and different organizations have had where you can get out there and sell. You can put it on eBay. You can put it on Amazon. Etsy has become they've got 25 million active buyers on Etsy a loan. So you no longer, the days of having to have a brick and mortar to pay for electricity, to keep the lights on, to keep a shop for people to come to, those are still great, and it's wonderful, but those days are behind us now. You can actually have a thriving business online. So I think those are some remarkable figures. I think that's some remarkable to give you the confidence to show you that the impact that small businesses have. So even if you go to the next slide for me. So the biggest question when I meet with clients is they come to our office and they sit down and say, I want to start a new business. And they say, I've got this vision and I want to do this, whether it's a burger joint or they want to have a lawn care company or an online business. Well, the question that's always asked is, what business structure is right for my vision? We always sit around and we talk about it. And so there's mainly 5 different types of businesses or 5 different types of structures that you can form. The sole proprietorship, the general partnership, an LLC, a limited liability company, an incorporation, or a subchapter S corporation. I'm going to dive more into that here in a moment on those specifics. But for most of the time when I meet with a client, that's going to be the question. We're going to look at the specifics. We're going to say, well, how many members, how many people do you have? Is it a partnership? What's your goals? What's your vision? What do you want to do? And so then we'll go from there and decide what's best. So if you'll go to the next slide for me, Stephen. So the first part is a sole proprietorship. And you can see all of these slides are going to have pros on the left and cons on the right. And a sole proprietorship, most of the time I'm never going to recommend this to a client. I'm never going to recommend this structure. The sole proprietorship is the easiest type of business to form. You basically just start operating in your name. You know, we're talking about a burger place. If I started up Brett's Burger Joint, if I was a sole proprietorship, it'd be Brett Smith doing business as Brett's Burger Joint. Very simple to do. You still got to get a business license. There's very minimal paperwork. Because it's a sole proprietorship, the management structure and the decision making is really simple. You're the boss. You're the one. You're the owner. So it's very streamlined. The taxation is passed through. When you pay taxes on your business, it goes right to you personally. But the cons, in my opinion, greatly outweigh the pros of having a sole proprietorship. One, of course, is liability. Now, I started my burger joint, and it's been my grandfather's recipe forever. When we were kids, he used to grill these burgers, and they're delicious, and I think they're wonderful. So I've decided I'm going to give the world these burgers, and of course make a small profit as well. And I'm operating as a sole proprietorship. Well, someone comes in and they get sick on the burgers, or they slip and fall, and they sue the business. Well, because I'm a sole proprietorship, I'm going to be responsible for that personally. So for the yacht that I bought and the big house that I've got and all the wonderful things I've gotten off the success of the business, all of those assets can be attached, and they could be a lawsuit. Those could be part of the lawsuit. And because of that, there's not a wall. There's not a wall of separation. Very simple to start, very simple to operate. But the liability, and the problem is, likewise with debt. If you were to take out a loan for your business, you take out a loan and for some reason you can't pay back the loan, well, you're going to be personally responsible for that. And so in the idea of creating a business is you don't necessarily want to be individually responsible for everything. And so I typically don't recommend a sole proprietorship. There's not often a time I do. So we'll go to the next one, Stephen, if you don't mind. Now, partnership. Partnership is very similar to a sole proprietorship. Basically, you and another person, or you and a collective, a group of people get together and decide that you want to do something. Me and my family get together and we're going to make Brett's Burgers. And so we all work together and we've formed a general partnership. Well, a partnership has the same thing. Pass-through taxation. It has that same benefit of the taxes going straight to you individually, but it also has the downfall and the downside of having the liability. And not now are you not only responsible for your liability, you're responsible for the actions of your partners. And so say you've got the burger joint going and everything's going well, and one of your family members does something bad for the business. And because they do that, you may be on the hook for their actions. And so because of that, you want to make sure a general partnership, historically a lot of people would have a general partnership. And now we're moving away from that, as you'll see when we talk about incorporations and LLCs. The main thing in forming a business, the main thing you want to do is you want to make sure you limit your liability, your personal liability. So those are the specifics of sole proprietorship and a general partnership. And one thing too, while Stephen changes the tech, for anybody that's watching or anybody that's watching live or watches this later, if you want to get a copy of the PowerPoint, I know I'm going to be flying through and providing a lot of information. It's pretty dense information. And because of that, if you need me to, I'd be happy to email you a copy, a PDF of the PowerPoint. You can email me at my email address at Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at HuffSmithLaw.com. I'll be happy to share this PowerPoint and answer any questions that you have about this. So, okay, back to the slide. So the next is, a lot of people are familiar with the incorporation. Corporation is a, you think of big companies, you think of McDonald's or Dell or any of these large companies that are incorporations. Well, incorporation is good. It's got that nice side of limited liability, but the difference with the corporation is now you've got double taxation. In the state of Alabama, in most states, you're going to have in the federal government, you're going to pay taxes at the corporate rate, and then you're going to pay taxes at the shareholder rate or the dividend rate based on profits. So you've got a double taxation with the corporation. The good thing about the corporation is the owners are separate from legal liability. You're not responsible for the actions of the business, so you've got the limited liability aspect. Most of the shareholders are not going to be responsible personally. Their personal assets won't be responsible for the business. It'll be the business's actions that would be responsible for their actions. Now, there's some caveats to that based on the particular actions and negligence or things like that, but for the most part, your individual shareholders, your individual members of the corporation, shareholders of the corporation, are not going to be liable for the actions of the company. One of the great things about an incorporation too is that if you're building up a business and you're wanting to attract outside investors, a lot of investment type companies, banks and things like that, or angel investors, they're very familiar with incorporations. It's very easy to sell them shares of the company. Very easy to trade, to bring in capital, to infuse capital into the business through the selling of shares. It's a good way to attract outside investors with an incorporation. The cons of the incorporation is there's a lot of paperwork. The IRS, the state level Department of Revenue, they require a lot of paperwork when forming a corporation and keeping a corporation in perpetuity, keeping it going. It requires that you file several documents. You've got to have a particular amount of board members. You've got to have bylaws. You've got to have reporting. You've got to have annual meetings. There's a high level of red tape that comes with managing an incorporation. And for a lot of the businesses that I assist or the people in our community, they may not be to that size, or that red tape may be a harm, not a benefit to them, and it may take time away that they should devote to growing the business. And like I said, the other large thing about incorporations is the double taxation, not at the corporate level and at the individual shareholder level. Good thing about liability with corporations, very much the taxation may be an issue. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Anybody like to ask a question? Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. The limited liability company, a lot of people are very familiar with. It's something that most of the time, new businesses, a lot of the people that I'm advising, the people that come in and talk to me, this is the type of business that people are familiar with, the limited liability company. It's not as old as the corporation. It's not as old as the sole proprietorship or the general partnership. It's been around since about the mid-'80s. It's a creature of the state, which means that each state has its individual laws. It has its individual specifics on how the limited liability company is operated. But the benefits of a limited liability company is you've got two of the things that you're looking for. One is you've got limited taxation. It's pass-through taxation for your members. And the second is limited liability. Now, talking on the limited liability side, when you form an LLC, the members, the individual members, you personally, you can have a one-member LLC or as many as you like as members of the LLC. And because of that, their actions, your actions as a member of that, or the actions of the business are not going to be, you're not going to be liable for that. And the individual members will not be individually liable for their actions like a general partnership. That's one of the greatest benefits in that whether it be a creditor or whether it be an accident that happens or some other legal issue, the business is going to be solely responsible for that, not you, the individual. The other side of it is the taxation. For all LLCs, the taxes, any taxes that are owed, are going to pass through to the individual members. So if you've got one member, of course, it's going to be like a sole proprietorship. All of that, profits minus losses minus exemptions, that's going to pass through to you as the individual member. But if you've got multiple members, it's going to be based on your ownership percentage. And so if you've got two members and it's 50-50%, that means that any tax liabilities is going to go 50% to the one member and 50% to the other member. So you've got those two issues that are great regarding the pros. Some of the other things compared to the corporation is you've got less paperwork, you've got lower filing costs. In the state of Alabama to file an LLC, and we'll talk about it in just a second, but in the state of Alabama to file an LLC is $183. It's $100 to the Alabama Secretary of State. It's $28 for your name reservation and $55 to the Lee County your county probate. I say Lee County because that's where my office is located in Auburn, but it's very inexpensive to do. Very, very inexpensive to start up a business. Very simple. Again, like the pass-through, the flow-through income taxation. Some of the cons is depending on how you structure the LLC. If you've got individual members, it tends to be kind of a rule by design or a board, like a board of people that make decisions. So different than the sole proprietorship in that when you're the solo member, you're the one that makes the decisions. If you've got several people, based on your organizational documents, it may have to take a certain amount of vote. So if you've got 4 members and it requires 75% to do a certain action, it's going to require their consent to that action. So that can be a problem as well. But I would say, on the most part, for most businesses I'm meeting with, an LLC is what we're setting up. We have a question.
Do you have any specific examples of businesses being formed as one structure when they could have saved a lot of money as formed as a different structure?
I think that's a really good question. With a sole proprietorship, it's going to be really inexpensive to form. Going to be similar to the price of the LLC. I would say when you're looking at, one of the main things with any new business is going to be time. A lot of the times people, they have vision and they've got energy, but they don't have, they've got to focus on getting that product out, getting the service out. They've got to turn to that. So, there's a lot of effort that goes into forming an incorporation. To me, when most people would probably be best set up as an LLC. An LLC tends to be inexpensive. It has less regulation, less documents that you have to provide, less meetings you have to attend, instead of the incorporation, which tends to take up more time. So, if time is money in that situation, I think the LLC is probably going to be one of the more efficient than an incorporation. Thank you for your question.
One more.
Sure.
Can you go over those LLC filing costs one more time?
Sure. I'm actually going to talk more about the LLC costs in just a moment, so if you'll hold that question just for a second, I'll come back to that in just a second. So, thank you very much. Go to the next slide for me, Stephen. The next type of business entity is the subchapter S, the SCorp, as it's called. This is kind of a newer creature that the IRS has allowed. There's been an opinion that's given that a lot of people are tending to want to do or create this type of entity. It's set up, and an LLC you can be taxed like this. It's mainly the SCorp has the limited liability like the corporation and like the LLC. But the difference is there's a tax savings with setting up an SCorp. That tax savings is that you can actually pay yourself, as the member, a certain income. And based on that income, you can it'd be less of a liability that you'd have at the end of the year. So the main reason people set up SCorps is that tax savings. Now, I'm not a tax attorney or an accountant, and I would certainly recommend as you go and start your business and get an idea, exploring it, talking with not only an attorney, not only an accountant, not only somebody doing marketing, but get these experts, and because they'll give you advice on the best way to do and the best way to file and what's going to save you money and be more efficient. Now the SCorp, it eliminates the double taxation of the corporation. You still got the protection. You can have up to 100 shareholders. The downside to me about the SCorp, the downside is the burden on regulation. They're very susceptible to IRS tax audit. They tend to be audited more frequently based on that income and the tax deductions and the payroll reductions, those things like that. So you're going through the same process of an incorporation for the most part, of the same meetings that you've got to have. One of the other aspects that I think can be somewhat more burdensome with an SCorp is that as a LLC, you can take draws as a member, and they don't have to be equal. So if you've got two members of the LLC and a draw being a payout, you can pay out your member different amounts. And so in one particular month, if you've got $2,000, you can pay $1,500 to yourself and $500 to your partner. Now or the other member of the LLC. Now the other member of the LLC may not be happy with that, but you can see that you're not limited to do draws at the same amount. Well, the SCorp requires you to do that, much like a dividend payout on a stock, in that if you take a payout of $1,000, it has to be the same amount to the other members. So there's a lot of restrictions there for the SCorp. One of the things too, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, you can form an LLC and then be taxed. You can either choose to be taxed as a partnership, or you can choose to be taxed as an SCorp. So you can form an LLC and still be taxed as an SCorp. And the SCorp, all it is subchapter S in the IRS tax code. Or you can form a pure SCorp, either way. Any questions over the SCorp or any of the entities? All right, we'll move on to the next. So we kind of did the 30,000 feet. We've kind of done the high level stuff. The main thing, you sit down and you say, this is what I want to do, this is my dream, this is what I want to build. And we talk about what's the best entity, what's the best form. Well, now this is the meat and potatoes, in my opinion, of the presentation. Because you can find stuff on Google, you can read, you can research, you can do a lot to find out what's the best structure. But the question is, okay.
I don't have any employees having an LLC. Is it worth to pay all the fees to have an SCorp?
Probably not. I'd probably need to know more specifics about your individual company. It's probably not going to be worth paying that. Depends on your level of income, depends on what you do, your service that you provide. So as every good attorney says, it depends. But it would depend on the specifics. But more than likely, probably an LLC would be best. But again, I'd have to know the specifics of the business. This is where, and this is one of the things when I went to put this class together, one of the things that was important to me was, where do I go? What do I need to talk to? Who do I need to talk to? Because this stuff is out there in the public. It's just sometimes it's hard to gather all that. So what I want to do, this is what you need to prepare. Now, if you don't mind, Stephen, there's a little language down there, if we can take me off the screen for a moment. So starting at the top, what you'll need to prepare for a sole proprietorship or a general partnership. One is you're going to need a name reservation. That name reservation is a certificate. It's just a one-page document that reserves your particular name. It could be ABC LLC. It could be Brett Smith LLC. It could be my sole proprietorship or my incorporation. What you'll do is you're going to file with the Secretary of State for a name reservation. You can do this online, and I'll show you on the next slide where to go. But this is so that you preserve that name. The main thing, too, to remember here is you're not going to be able to name your business the same that's another one in Alabama for several different reasons, and intellectual property reasons, or just limitation on infringing on someone else's name. So when you select a name, you want to make sure that there's not another business named that name. And what the Secretary of State does is gives you a certificate that reserves that name to you as the participant or the person applying for 1 year. Now there's a $28 fee for that, but you can do it all online, and it'll go to printout. After that, you're going to obtain your Federal Employer Identification Number, your FEIN. What that is it's just like your Social Security for your person. It's going to be a number from the IRS. I think it's an 8 or 10 digit number. That's the number that you'll use to identify your business. If you have employees, you'll use that number. When you file your taxes, you'll use that number, just like your Social Security number. This document also can be done online. You can apply for this document online. And then you'll need to, for your sole proprietorship and general partnership, get your business license. If you're in the city limits, city of Auburn or city of Opelika, you'll need to, if you're operating here, you'll need to apply for a business license. Any permits and zoning clearances. And one of the biggest things, not necessarily for the sole proprietorship, but for the partnership, that I would recommend, if you're going to go the partnership route, is to have a partnership agreement. This is going to be me and my partner, this is our job, this is how we're going to split profits, this is going to be our responsibilities. It's the code, it's the bylaws, it's how the business operates. And with those, yes sir?
How long is the name reservation valid? For 1 year? Do I have to reserve it each year?
Well, the intent, and the question was about name reservations. The intent is that you're going to be forming the business within that year. Now, the state of Alabama will reserve it to you for 1 year. After that, it's no longer valid. You would have to then apply for that name again after the year. So for 1 year, that'll be good. 12 months from the point that you receive the certificate. So then, the partnership agreement is just a legal document. It's not filed anywhere. You don't file it with the state. You don't file it with the probate office. It's an internal corporate document between you and your partner that lays out the rules of the business. Main things it's going to attach is the 4 Ds. It's going to deal with death, disability, divorce, and dissolution. And those ways, that'll express, and I cannot express this enough, that if you can put things in writing, it will save your partnership, it'll save your business, because that way, instead of getting to the point where you have a problem, where, we need to do this, I don't agree with that, where we've run into a log jam, you can go back to the document. You can say, this is what we agreed on. This is what we wanted to do, and this is how we're going to operate. Yes, sir?
Would you talk about the differences between an LLC and an LLP?
Limited liability partnership is very similar to an LLC. It's a limited liability company. A limited liability partnership has got the same perks or benefits of the LLC, which is the limited liability and the pass-through taxation. It's just where you're going to be in a partnership similar to a general partnership, in that you'll have an agreement, like we're talking about with a partnership agreement, on how to operate. A lot of law firms will do that. They'll do LLPs. Professional organizations, people in professional services will create a limited liability partnership. Very similar to the limited liability company, but still, in my opinion, there's still somewhat liability between your partners. But your documents will express and can express that indemnity, which is that I'll protect you and you protect me, and that separation, that wall. So very similar in nature, the LLC and the LLP. So the corporation, very similar to the sole proprietorship and general partnership, you're going to need your name reservation. You apply with the Secretary of State, $28. You're going to need your articles of incorporation. And when we go to the slide here in a second, it's going to give you a sample of those. You'll need bylaws. The articles of incorporation will express the individual shareholders, how many shares you're issuing, just beginning documents, the incorporator for the business, beginning information for the start of the business. You're going to have your bylaws, similar to your partnership agreement. These are the rules. This is how we operate. This is who does our taxing. This is who does certain offices. This is our president, secretary, treasurer, all the offices, whether we have a board, all of those decisions. That's going to be in the bylaws of the company. You'll file, or this is for the SCorp, you'll obtain your Federal Employer Identification Number, your FEIN. You can file an IRS Form 255-3. This is for that subchapter S. If you wanted to create an SCorp, this is what you would file. You'll, of course, apply for your business license, permits, and zoning clearances. And if you're offering a product, and if you're going to incur expenses for sales tax, you're going to have to apply through the Department of Revenue for sales tax. And then one other thing I've got listed here is optional is your shareholder, your stockholder agreement. I think this is very crucial. If you've got a closely held corporation, which is not one that's publicly traded, a lot of people are familiar with publicly traded corporations where you can buy stock online, and you can get a stockbroker and all that stuff. You see the listings daily on the news, but not all companies are publicly traded. But you still need to have an agreement, a level of an agreement between your stockholders, what the company is going to do for the stockholder, if there's going to be a dividend payout, when they can expect a dividend, different issues, and that can be laid out in a stockholder agreement. Next is the limited liability company. Very similar. You're going to get your name reservation through the Secretary of State. You're going to file articles of, or certificate of formation, or articles of your articles of organization, similar document. This is the name of the company. These are the members. This is how much, who owns what. This is who's, if it's a managed or a member managed. Our address, who our agent is. Those first type of things at the inception of the business. You'll need to have that. I would recommend an operating agreement for the company, similar to your bylaws, similar to your partnership agreement. An operating agreement is going to lay out those 4 Ds again. What's going to happen with death? What if one of the members dies? Because the general idea is, unless it's stated, an LLC is not going to continue if a member dies. Or disability, if somebody's not able to work or be a member of the LLC anymore. How do we dissolve this LLC? What do we do then in divorce? And that's one point that, the interest that you have in an LLC is just like the table I'm standing in front of or this building. You can own it. There's an ownership right. It's an asset, and there's value in it. A lot of new businesses, there may not be a lot of value at first, but as you grow, it's going to have value. And so one thing to remember is that if you're married, your wife or your husband is going to have a 50% interest in that based on marital law. And so a lot of companies want to deal with these issues. They want to say, in these agreements, what happens then? If someone wants to leave the business, are they going to be allowed to, does the company buy back their interest? Can they just sell it to a third party? Or because one of the things about the LLC is that not everyone can be a member. Your people that the LLC has to agree on, the members have to agree on new membership. And so you can't just sell it. You could sell your financial interest in the LLC, but you can't sell your seat at the table, your voting rights, those things like that. And so these are a lot of, in your operating agreement, those are the things that are going to be laid out. So these are the documents, just the very bare bones documents that you need to be thinking about and preparing when you go to file for your individual business, whether it's a sole proprietorship or LLC or incorporation. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions? Okay.
How much does it cost to obtain a business license, and how many times do you need to reapply for that? Is it different for each county or city for LLC?
Your business license is going to be based on the municipality or the area. I can tell you in Auburn, between Auburn and Opelika, there's 2 different fees. I believe Auburn's $110, and the introductory, the first one, is $110, and I believe Opelika's $105. Now I may have those backwards, but it's about $100-something. Now that's going to be your first time. Now, when you first apply, that's going to be the fee. Now, specifically in Auburn, depending on the structure of your business and what type of work you're doing, and if you're in real estate or you're selling a product, that's going to fluctuate. That business license will fluctuate, and you'll need to renew that annually. So to answer your question, that business license is going to be set by the municipality. Now, the state of Alabama has its own business privilege tax that you pay, which is similar to a license. That's the privilege of having a business in the state of Alabama. And so you'll pay that annually too. Most, if all, fees are going to be on an annual basis. That's one of the beautiful parts of starting a business, is that you realize when you get your business going, somebody every other day is asking for some sort of money or payment or fee or something you've got to pay. So it's a wonderful part of being a business owner. All right, Stephen, if we can go to the next. Okay, so this is a really important slide. This is where you can find, and like I said, if you want to, I can email you a copy of this PDF after the presentation. These are going to be hyperlinks to where you can find all of these documents. One, at the top there's your name reservation. You can click right on there, and that'll walk you through the process of filling that out and getting your name reservation. 2 is the FEIN right there. There's a sample here of articles of incorporation and articles of organization. That 255-3 form is available there at that link. And then for those that are starting a business in Auburn, Opelika, these are the links to their business license. There's a good walkthrough on both websites of how to fill it out, who you need to talk to, and everybody that needs to pass by. And then again, right here, the partnership agreement, the bylaws, stockholders, all of those miscellaneous documents I was talking about. You can find a good example online. There's several, there's a ton out there. You get a good idea of what those look like. Kind of get an idea of what you need to put in there and get some samples of those documents. But this is a good place, a good source right here to go to those particular links. Got a question?
Sarah No says, thank you for doing this, exclamation point.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. It's my honor. All right, so the next page. We'll go to the next slide. All right, so where do I go and how do I file it? So the name reservation, or how much does it cost? The name reservation, online. The prior slide, it showed the link to go to. $28. That's the fee for that. Next is the FEIN, the Federal Employer Identification Number. There's no fee associated with that. You go to the IRS website, you go to the link I provided, you can Google it too, or Yahoo or whatever search engine you use, but you can find it. There's no fee with that. The next is going to be the Articles of Incorporation, your Certificate of Formation, which if it's an incorporation or an LLC, you're going to take that document. And the link, I showed you a link on the last slide, you'll take that document to your probate office, whether that's in Lee County or Russell County or Jefferson County or Baldwin, wherever that you are, wherever you're forming the business, you're going to take 2 copies, this is important, take 2 copies of that document, that signed document, and take that with you. And what you'll do is you're going to pay, now the fee may fluctuate, and I'll tell you, in Lee County, it's $55 to the probate office. You'll take you'll take 2 copies of that document with $55, with 1 check for $55 and a second check for $100. What they'll do is they'll record it there in Lee County or whatever county it is. They'll record it, and then they'll take your checks, the $55 to the probate and $100 to the Secretary of State. They'll take the $55 check, and then they'll take the second copy of the document and mail that to the Secretary of State in Alabama. So that's $155. And then the Form 255-3 you can find online. That's going to be, it's an IRS document. And then the other documents there, you've got, I'm trying to see the list there. Your operating agreement, your shareholder agreement, all of those documents, no need to record them. Now, you can record them if you like, and I know some people that do, but they're internal documents. They're documents for the business, and not everybody needs to know. The general public doesn't necessarily need to know all the inner workings of the business and who owns what percentage and things like that. So they're not required to be filed. And there's really no need. You just need to have a book. Some people get corporate kits or a folder to keep all of that together when you need to reference it back or if you have a question about some of the internal documents. So that's where the documents and where you take them. That's a pretty, I think to me, is a pretty crucial part. And this was one of the things I had to learn is where and who and how many copies and how much it's going to be. But it's pretty straightforward and simple. Yes, sir.
This is from Haley Huff. She said, Dagny told me to ask you what 3 fiduciary duties a board of directors owes to its corporation. Also, she says she loves you and gets sad when you go off screen.
I appreciate it. That's my wife and daughter. And I'm one of the things I'm very impressed is my daughter is asking me about fiduciary duties at 2 years old. And I'll tell you a small story. When my daughter Dagny was born at the hospital at MAC, the doctors they said, well, this is the smartest and prettiest baby we've ever had at this hospital. And I knew that they weren't lying because doctors can't lie. And so that it was crucial. That's important. And I think that's a good point. And fiduciary duties, as a corporation, you have a duty, and in an LLC, the directors, the individual directors, or the particular officers, president, secretary, they have duties and responsibilities to one another and to shareholders. And so they can't breach their duty of care. They can't breach. There's certain fiduciary duties that they have to do what's in the best interest of the business. And so that I don't want to dive too deep into that. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. But thank you, Haley, and thank you, Dagny, for that question. Stephen, can we go to the next slide for me? Anybody? Any other questions on that? On fiduciary duties? Okay, so post-filing. So you've got your articles, you've got your documents, you've gone and applied for your FEIN. Now here's the important thing. Now that you've got your name reservation, you've got everything recorded with the probate, and now you've got your FEIN, you can take those two documents and go to a bank. You can go to your operating, go to your financial place, wherever, your financial institution, and you can set up a bank account. And that way, you can start putting money in on behalf of the business. Now, this is one of the biggest issues, especially with an LLC, is this idea that you want to make sure not to what's called pierce the corporate veil, and I won't get too much into that, but you don't want to commingle assets, meaning that when you start your business, when you have expenses for the business, when you're up and running, you don't want to use personal assets for the business, and you don't want to use business assets personally. And so that way, because there could be an argument, someone could come in and tear that wall down of liability. If they say, well, this isn't a real LLC, this is not a real LLC, this is just someone, it's a false, or it's not true, because they're commingling their money. So it's important that once you get this up and once you get the operating account, deposit the money into the account, and then use that money to buy office equipment or for your other expenses, or the list goes on. But make sure you just keep those separate. Some of the other things is, I'm trying to see here, the big thing is to talk to and hire an accountant. I think that's important. You want to make sure that you have your liability low. Make sure your tax liability. Make sure you're not doing things that are going to waste those resources. Again, with any new business, you've got energy, you've got vision, you've got passion. You're ready to hit the world and become wealthy in 3 years. But the main thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to get tied down with things that you don't know. And I'll speak from experience. I went to school to be an attorney and to practice law. But when I opened up my own firm, I had to wear a different hat. I've got to wear my marketing hat, and I've got to wear my payroll hat, and I've got to wear my employee HR hat. There's a lot of different responsibilities that you have besides just doing what you want to do. If you want to open up a bake shop, you've got the recipes, you've got the ingredients, you know exactly what, but you've also got to build a client base. And so there's a lot of different things, and a lot of people I talk to, a lot of my clients, they just say, whoa, it's overwhelming. But I promise you, the greatest thing, and I'll tell this from experience, the greatest thing from the day you start is you're nervous, I don't know if I'm doing this right, and that's all this, but you look back 3, 4, 5 years and you go, wow, I've learned so much from day one to this point. I've learned so much about being a business owner. And you dabble in a little bit of everything, and it's pretty amazing. But in my opinion, it's a good deal. It's good for you to focus on what it is, focus on growing the business, focus on getting clients, focus on selling your product, and not get bogged down with things that you may not have a full grasp on. So I think that's important. And then my last point there, of course, is to make a profit and to get wealthy. So that, at this point in the presentation, if I haven't put everyone to sleep, the good thing about doing it online is I don't get to look out to the crowd and see people falling asleep. So I'm sure there's a few people that I've probably put to sleep with all that information. I want to switch gears. We've covered the inception of the business, your business entity formation, and we've covered what you need to file and where you need to file it. So I want to talk more about another aspect of your business, which is going to be your intellectual property. It's going to be talking about some different issues about your names, your trademarks, and things like that. So before we move there, if you have any questions about what we went over, and I know I've been going about 1,000 miles an hour, if you have any questions, please let me know and ask, and I'll be sure to I'll answer any of those questions.
When it comes to business licenses, what if you live in Lee County but outside of the Auburn city limits? How different would the process be to apply for a license?
Well, if you're living outside the city limits, you're not necessarily going to be required to have a business license. Now, it depends on how much business that if you're doing business in those municipalities, they may require you to have a business license. And I would be pretty confident if you called these individual cities and said, hey, do I need a business license? They're probably going to tell you that you need a business license. But in Lee County, there is a requirement to have a business license in the county outside the city limits, but you don't necessarily have to have one based on if you're working out of your home, or whether your office is or you've got a building, wherever your place of business is. So you can imagine this can expand greatly if you're operating in other states, if you're going to be in Florida or Georgia or spreading out through the Southeast or internationally. So there's other issues with that with business licenses as well, and different states treat it differently. I know that in some of the Midwest states, they're going to require you to have a business license no matter how much money you do. And for the most part, this is an important point too, if you're going to be, and especially for this area, because we're so close to the border of Georgia, and we're relatively close to Florida as well, is that if you're going to be doing work across state lines, you're likely going to have to register. You will have to register with that particular state your business. Now you can either form a brand new LLC or incorporation there, or you can file as a foreign company, a foreign LLC in that state. You know, so you're going to need to require that. And the reason that they require that is if you're going to do business in that state, you need to be able to receive process, or if there's a lawsuit or taxes. Yes, sir.
Julia says that she's a business owner since May, but she's just worried about making major mistakes with taxes because she says taxes can be kind of complicated. So she's just scared about making any major mistakes with taxes.
Right. And Julia, I think that's is it Julia? Julia, I think that's, you know, I'm always concerned about, you know, that's one of the main things to why you need to talk to an accountant. A lot of the accountants in this area, and I'm not sure if you're in this area or where in the state of Alabama you are, if you're not in the state of Alabama. Most accountants will meet with you and discuss with you, give you a consultation, a free consultation. They'll talk with you about some of where you're at, what you need to do, and what you need to file. But depending on your business, depending on where you're growing, what you're, you know, if you're offering a product, if you've got employees, different issues like that, you're going to have different tax liabilities that you're going to have to pay. And you don't want to get into a position where you didn't know you owed some form of taxation, and now the United States government or the state or the city or whoever is going to be coming back from years with penalties and late fees and things like that. So I think from the very beginning, it's important to talk with an accountant, to structure it. And you may change your structure. It may, as you grow, as you expand, or you different entities, you may create subsidiaries or other businesses, depending on what you're doing. But it's important to talk with an experienced accountant. And that's my opinion. And I think it's a good idea. I think it's a very good idea. So, any other questions about business entities? Well, we're going to move on here, and this is big time crowd involvement time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about trademarks. We're going to talk about intellectual property. So this is where I need everyone's involvement. We're going to start from number 1, and can you name the company that's associated with number 1? And Zach, tell me when someone does. Will you tell me when someone names it correctly?
There's about a 20-second delay.
Okay. Can anyone that's watching go through, just post it, you can post it online, go through 1 through 8 and name each different, guess the brand or the company that's associated with that logo.
Julia says number 1 is Twitter.
Yep, correct. Yeah.
Well, somebody's number 2 is Hilton.
Yeah, there you go. It's Hilton, that's right.
That was Tamara that said that. Julia says number 7 is Audi.
That's right, number 7 is Audi. Yeah, no Googling, no Googling. Don't cheat.
Tamara says 3, DreamWorks.
Yeah, DreamWorks. Number 3 is DreamWorks.
Julia says 5 is Apple.
That's right, Apple.
It looks like Julia and, well, there's like a tag team going on.
Okay.
I don't know that nobody's got number. Denise says 6 is McDonald's.
That's right, 6 is McDonald's. That's right.
That was a tough one.
Yeah, that's.
Julia says number 2 is Dell, but I don't think that's correct.
2 is Hilton.
Cleopatra said NASA, but she didn't say a number.
Yeah, kind of. 4. That's kind of NASA. Okay, so everyone's guessed everyone but 4 and 8.
And 7.
7?
Somebody.
Yeah, we said Audi.
Yeah,
Audi said.
And then she said Audi again for number 7. Oh,
Yeah.
Cleopatra said Audi is 7.
Yep, that's right.
Denise guessed 8 for Brooks Brothers.
That's right. Number 8 is Brooks Brothers. So we got 4. Number 4 is the only one that no one has guessed.
Yeah, nobody's guessed 4.
Okay.
Haley Huff also guessed 8 as Brooks Brothers.
Yep.
So.
All right.
Looks like 4 is stumping everybody. Oh, yeah.
All right. Number 4 is Boeing. That is the logo for Boeing. All right. These are all logos. The main thing, all of these are identifiable products. Every one of these all of these logos you see and you recognize and you know their brand. You know Twitter, you know Apple, you know Audi, and you see those, and there's value. There's intrinsic value in these logos. If you go to the next slide for me, Stephen, real quick. Okay. Okay. So here's the last crowd interaction. All right. So these are slogans, and see if you can guess what company is associated with which slogan. I'll give you some time to think about it. You may need to. Yeah.
Cleopatra says number 1 is Mercedes.
Close. It's not Mercedes.
Tamara says 2 is Geico.
That is correct, Tamara.
Tamara says number 3 is Capital One.
That is correct.
Denise says number 5 is Nike.
That's correct.
Denise said number 4 is Wendy's.
Yep, that's right.
So did Sarah. Number 1, Denise said number 1 is BMW.
That's correct. We got all 5 of them. Congratulations.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the aspects of my practice in the legal world, and one of the things that new business owners need to think about is their intellectual property. Similar to the products that you actually have, if you look on a list of assets that you bought for the company, you've got computers, you've got chairs, you've got desks, you've got all of that different stuff. You've got 25 blue pens, you've got 75 legal pads. This whole list of things that you've got. One of the things that people don't always think about is their intellectual property. And that's the name, that's the logo that's associated with the business, that's the slogan. Those things, there's value in that. And so the United States Office of Copyright, or the United States Patent and Trademark Office, actually gives us protections. That's actually found in the Constitution that says we can protect what we've created with our mind. A lot of people think of copyright like literary work, song lyrics, pieces of artwork, different, even code, computer code. People are looking at that, and you can get protected copyright, meaning that no one can use that. Especially like in the art world, a particular piece of artwork, you don't want someone taking from you and taking your creativity and then profiting off of it. And the idea is that you've put the time, you've put the mental energy into creating, whether it's sculpture or painting, things like that, and you can now use that to sell your product, to get it out into the marketplace. And because of that, Office of Copyright, or common law in the different states and the federal government, it allows you to be protected from other people infringing on that copyright. The same thing with trademarks. Trademarks, a particular name, a particular name of business, like, well, you just use the example, McDonald's. Everyone can identify the golden arches. Well, they've put time, they've created that image, and you see that, and you think, I want to go get a very healthy, delicious burger, so I'll go to McDonald's. And you identify with that. You know that that's the place. Now, you can imagine if someone else created another burger place called McDonald's. Well, now they create confusion in the marketplace. Now, when you're looking at, you see one McDonald's, you don't know which one you're actually wanting to go to. And so because of that, because they were the first to do it and use that name and created a brand, they can get protection on that, the golden arches and the name. And one of the most famous are the, you see that all over the place. Several examples of businesses. You'll see the R, it's got the R and the circle behind it. You'll see that behind it. And that shows to the world that that's protected, it's registered, and you can't use it. You can't use our logo, you can't use our slogan. It just helps to create, it's your mark and trade. It helps you build that business, and it allows someone, after you've put your blood, sweat, and tears in this business, not to vulture on what you've done, your creativity, your work. It allows them, it keeps a separation. It's pretty interesting. You could go on the USPTO's, United States Patent and Trademark Office's website, and they have an entire catalog. And you can search names, and I recommend doing this if you're wanting to apply for a trademark or a copyright. You can go in there and search for a list of current names. Auburn University has War Eagle. That's copyright, or that's trademarked. And so you cannot use that name. You can't use War Eagle because it is trademarked. It would be an infringement. One of the benefits also, in particular like the literary arts with copyright, is that you can then, if you create a product that has intrinsic value, you can actually license it to someone's use. And that product is protected. You own the rights to it. But you can allow someone to reproduce it. You see it all the time on TV or commercials or on the internet, reproductions of certain pieces of art or song lyrics and things like that, that you can actually make money off people using that or licensing your product. But the main thing here is the idea about the trademark, the copyright, and the patent is that you want to protect not only those hard assets that you have, those things that are on the books, but also the work you've put in, your creativity, your creative work. The third is, I don't want to breeze past, is the patent. And the patent is when you make a unique design, you've created something unique, you've got a combination of fragrances that you're putting into a candle, you've got a particular lotion, you've reinvented the way the wheelbarrow works. There's all kinds of sky's the limit. Well, you can actually apply, and in a similar idea of the license, you can apply with the United States Patent and Trademark Office for a patent, meaning that that's a unique design, you've made that design, and because of that, no one else can do it. If it gets similar to that, you can have a lawsuit, you can potentially sue them, because that's how you're going to make money. That's your good that you're producing, and that was your creativity that was able to patent it. One of the biggest examples that you've probably heard about patents is the recipe to Coca-Cola. When you file for a patent, you have to put your schematics, your blueprints, and all that. You have to file that, and it's public record. People can see it, they can review it, see it in a book, they can see your layout, how you design. Coca-Cola actually doesn't have a patent on their recipe. And you've probably seen it if you've been to Atlanta. The Coca-Cola, it's 50 yards underground, buried in a lockbox. But the reason they do that is so that no one can know the exact recipe on how to make their product, so that they can't tweak one little difference and it'd be legal. And so it's just kind of a funny example. The costs are relatively inexpensive for a trademark or copyright. A copyright is going to be about $35 to $50, the application. A trademark is going to be $225 per class for the most part. And by class, what I mean by that is it goes into a catalog. As you can imagine, you can have, use my example again at McDonald's. Of course, it's getting to dinner time. That's why I keep repeating that. Is you can have a McDonald's restaurant and you can have a McDonald's auto repair, because those are two types of different industry. And so when you file for your trademark, it's going to go into a catalog based on that particular industry and the product that you're offering. And so, per class, it's $225, relatively inexpensive. Patents are very time-consuming. They typically take a minimum of 12 months, can take up to 24 months to get processed, and they're pretty expensive, depending on the particular patent you're trying to. But I want everyone to keep in mind about your intellectual property too, and that's not so much about starting up the business, but you want to protect what you've created and what you've processed. Will you go to the next slide for me, Stephen? And this is what I was just talking about with the trademarks. You can see the fees associated with it and the links. I believe we've got some links listed here of where to go if you're interested in filing for a trademark, copyright, or patent. All right, next slide for me. All right, so that was a very, very, very quick overview of intellectual property, patents and trademarks and copyrights. Something to keep in mind. So, does anyone have any questions about that particular, or any questions? If you'll show that next slide for me. This is a really good, this almost second to last slide here, some additional resources. This first, I cannot express how important this first link is. It is very, very helpful. It's about a 55 to 60 page manual on the things that you need to think about. You know, some of the things we haven't even addressed here is business planning, trying to reach out and get financing for your business. You know, preparing a good business plan, looking at possibly going out and getting certain different types of insurance, agencies to talk to, things like this. This is a very, very good resource to have. It's a very good manual. There's two links, and this is the Alabama Small Business Development Center Network. I cannot say enough about them. Cannot say enough about this group. Very helpful. They have they've got one in Auburn. I believe they have one in Tuscaloosa as well. It's an organization. It's a public organization that allows counseling. It's almost like an incubator. They'll bring you in and they'll work with you on who you need to talk to, the things that you need to do, getting your business plan together. It's a very wonderful resource. I think it's an excellent place to start too, and they help you. They kind of get you through the process. Very, very helpful. Another thing that we've got that we're lucky to have here over in Opelika is the Collaboration Station. Very neat organization. They've got community sharing. They've got a wonderful price on office spaces. It's a good opportunity to network with different type of businesses. One of the biggest things about businesses is trying to minimize your overhead. This organization has a great plan where you can get in there, meet with other people, get advice, get started up, get incubated, get on your feet at a very minimal cost. Wonderful place. I recommend talking with them. It's a great, great resource. And then, of course, here's the Auburn. Got links to the Auburn and Opelika Chamber of Commerce. Very good resource as well. Great way to network with other people, build your brand, talk with other people in the industry. Not only people in your industry, but also people in different industries that you may need to talk to. Next slide here. I'm really excited about this. This is something that I was able to help start. I think we've been on 3 months now. This is the Alabama Small Business Forum. It's a Lee County chapter. I'm waiting to get some other people to start ones in different counties. But we've got about 200 different members right now. Wonderful resource. We've got accountants and lawyers and marketing folks. Got people that own lawn care companies, people that have started bakeries. We've got we've got people that produce video production. Stephen wanted me to remind Stephen Dixon Media. But it's been a great resource not only to say, hey, this is the product that I offer, but it's also a place to say, hey, I've got a question about, what kind of advertising do you do? Or I need some pricing on our lawn care at our office. It's just a really good resource, and I didn't know how successful it was going to be when I started it, but it's really exciting to see the interchange of ideas, people communicating one another. It's free to join. If you want to, look it up on Facebook right now or after the presentation. But I'd happily invite you, and there's different people from different industries, different people with business owners. We've got people that operate from their home. We've got people that have offices. And if you have a question, just throw it out there and you'll get probably 10 or 15 different answers. Very, very awesome resource. I'm excited to be a part of it. It's very, very neat. Next slide, please. Oh, question?
Sarah asks, will we be able to access these slides?
Yes, Sarah. I will. I'll upload. You can you can email me the slides, you can email me and I'll email you a PDF of the slides at Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at HuffSmithLaw.com. Or I can upload them to this Facebook group if you'd like to go on the Small Business Forum, and that way you can, if you don't want to share your email, that's fine. You can download them off that. I'll upload them as soon as we get done. But yes, I'll share these slides with everybody that would like to have a copy. Also, if you'd like, you can call my office too, and I can email them, or you can come pick up a copy, or whatever's best. Next slide for me, please. So I thank everyone. I appreciate everyone that watched. It's been exciting. It's been a little bit different, not having a crowd and interacting with the crowd. I thank everyone for their questions. I just want to stress, and the important thing is, if you're looking to start a business, don't be fearful. There's so many resources out there. There's I feel like, and I know that it feels like it's unknown, that you're afraid you take one step, you're going to get in trouble, you're not going to do the right thing, it's going to put you in a bad place. But hopefully, and I hope that you've been able to gain a lot from this slide, I know I went, or from this class, I know I went very quickly. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me or contact me or join the group and ask questions on the forum. I just really appreciate everyone watching at home or wherever that you are. And for the next couple of minutes, I'm here to take any questions. And I thank you very much, and I appreciate you coming and watching.
Sarah, Julia, and Tamara are all just saying thank you. It was awesome, great information, stuff like that. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it. It's my honor to do this.
Seems like that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it, and have a wonderful evening.